Now it's time to bring Christina Koch, Luca Parmitano, and Alexander Skvortsov home. Welcome back to Mission Control. You're here in the International Space Station Flight Control Room, where the team here is getting ready and following along for the return of MS-13 Soyuz back to landing in Kazakhstan at 3:12 a.m. Central Time today. Preparations have been going on since they undocked from the International Space Station at 11:50, and they are now heading towards a 2:18 a.m. Central Time deorbit burn to get ready for that landing, which will bring them home just southeast of Zhezkazgan, Kazakhstan, wrapping up a record-setting mission. This will be the last orbit of the Earth for the Expedition 61 crew members on board the Soyuz. For ESA's Luca Parmitano and Roscosmos's Alexander Skvortsov, who launched in this Soyuz on July 20th, this will be their 3,216th orbit. But for NASA's Christina Koch, who arrived on the space station on March 14th, she'll land today, having orbited the Earth 5,248 times and traveled 139 million miles, enough to have journeyed to the moon and back 291 times. You can see some of the additional accomplishments she racked up on her mission here. Again, 139 million miles traveled, in addition to, of course, setting records for the most time in space on a single space flight for a female, 7th all-time record for a U.S. astronaut on the endurance list, and 50th on the all-time for all astronauts. 328 days is enough time to get a lot done, so next we're going to take a look back at some of Christina Koch's memorable moments. As you can see, a lot accomplished in 328 days in space and a lot of excitement from the team supporting Cook from the ground. That last congratulations message there at the end came from some of the International Space Station program team members here in Houston. We'd love to have you post your own congratulations for Christina Koch on social media, and you can do so using the hashtag #CongratsChristina. We'll be on the lookout for those, but in the meantime, we have another congrats message from the previous holder of the record that Cook broke.
Congratulations, Christina, on breaking the single flight record for a woman. I'm very happy for you. We all know gravity sucks.
That, of course, was former NASA astronaut Peggy Woodson, who until December held the record for longest single space flight by a woman. Cook surpassed Woodson's 288 days back on December 28th. And obviously has continued racking up more days since then. She'll land with a total of 328, the new record for the longest single space flight by a woman, second longest single space flight by an American, and seventh on the all-time endurance list for Americans. There are 6 Americans who have spent more time in space than Cook has, but they all made multiple space flights to achieve their totals, while this was Cook's first. Again, you can send your congratulations to Cook using the hashtag #CongratsChristina. Koch, Parmitano, and Skvortsov said goodbye to their crewmates, Jessica Meir, Andrew Morgan, and Oleg Skvortsov earlier this afternoon with lots of final hugs, photos, and waves before closing the hatches between their vehicle and the International Space Station at 8:34 p.m. Central Time. This is some video recorded during those final farewells earlier today. Andrew Morgan coming in to the screenshot there, followed here by Jessica Meir. And there's Oleg Skvortsov. That was the last view that we expect to see of the Expedition 61 crew, Cook, Parmitano, and Skvortsov, before we see them coming out of the Soyuz on the ground in Kazakhstan. After closing the hatches, they were able to get all the required leak checks and preparations done for an on-time undocking from the space station at 11:50 p.m. Central, setting them on their way for today's 3:12 a.m. landing. They've since moved into position about 20 miles away from the station and are just about ready to go for the deorbit burn that will take place at 2:18 a.m. Central Time, just 9 minutes from now. Here in the International Space Station Flight Control Room, Flight Director Mike Lammers is leading the team here in Houston as they follow along in tonight's activities. He's accompanied by one of our new flight directors, Marcos Flores, who is with him tonight. And then next to them, just standing up there in the view, is Capcom Adam Springer.
Well, I can describe them to you. They're beautiful.
And in Kazakhstan, a number of officials and vehicles are standing by in preparation for the landing. A total of 12 Mi-8 helicopters have been deployed to various areas to await the landing. 8 are at the expected landing site southeast of Zhezkazgan, Kazakhstan. 2 more will be ready 250 miles away and in the area where touchdown would take place if a ballistic entry occurred. And the final 2 helicopters will loiter midway between the two. We, of course, aren't expecting a ballistic entry, but do want to be prepared in case we need to be.
Please deactivate cooler dry unit fans. Yes, it is in work. 5-3. Yes, correct. Command has been sent. Command executed. S9 is already illuminated. Excellent. Copy all. And you are going to set up Z3 command a bit later. Okay, copy.
Crew inside the Soyuz talking with the team supporting them in Russia. You can see that here the landing site that they're heading for today. Aboard the helicopters going out to that nominal landing site are several NASA representatives, including Joel Montalbano, the Deputy Director, Deputy Space Station Program Manager, Megan MacArthur, who's the Deputy Chief of the Astronaut Office, and Tricia Mack, NASA's Human Spaceflight Program Russia Director, as well as flight surgeons and NASA photographer Bill Ingalls and NASA spokesman Rob Navius. Unfortunately, the weather that will greet them at the landing site won't be particularly welcoming. Temperature will be around 25 degrees Fahrenheit or about -3 degrees Celsius. Not the coldest landing ever, but not particularly comfortable either. And unfortunately for those of us watching at home, the forecast also calls for cloud coverage, which means we may not see much video of the capsule making its way down to the ground as we sometimes do. But once they've arrived, the landing team will quickly erect a medical tent at the landing site to get the crew out of the weather and keep them as comfortable as possible as they go through their regular post-landing checkouts.
Not illuminated. Okay, copy. It is not illuminated, and command was not sent. When you send the command, could you please call us with a confirmation? One more question. So once we activate it, we're supposed to confirm it. Is that correct? Yes, that's affirmative. Okay, copy all. And of course I will do it as always.
As I mentioned earlier, the Soyuz will be about 20 miles away from the station at the time of its deorbit burn. That burn will start 25 seconds after 2:18 a.m. Central and finish 4 minutes and 39 seconds later at 2:23 a.m. The engine firing will act as a brake on the Soyuz while it's still 272 miles above the Earth, slowing it down by 128 meters per second or 286 miles per hour to drop it out of orbit. You can see a graphic animation here of what that deorbit burn looks like.
Alexander,
About 23 minutes later at 2:46 a.m. Central, when the Soyuz is at an altitude of 87 miles above the Earth, the vehicle's computers will command the 3 modules of the Soyuz to separate just above the first traces of the Earth's atmosphere.
Well, because
you can see what its descent as it moves on looks like. The orbital module on top is where the crew has a small amount of room to move around in during its flight to the station after launch, and the instrumentation and propulsion module on bottom, which houses the oxygen storage tanks, attitude control thrusters, avionics and communications and control equipment, will separate from the descent module in the middle where the crew is seated. It contains personally contoured seats for the crew members' use during launch, entry, and landing, as well as all the controls and displays necessary for critical flight activities. It also has life support provisions, batteries for re-entry and landing, and parachutes for soft landing rocket engines to slow the vehicle just before touchdown. The orbital module and the instrumentation and propulsion module will both burn up in the Earth's atmosphere while that descent module continues on with Koch, Parmitano, and Skvortsov inside.
Compass.
3 minutes later at 2:49 a.m., about 62 miles or 326,000 feet above the Earth, the Soyuz will begin atmospheric reentry. The descent module's computer will orient the capsule with its ablative heat shield pointing forward to protect it from the heat as it begins to fly through the Earth's atmosphere, and the crew will begin to feel the first effects of gravity again. That will build through 2:56 a.m. when they'll experience the maximum pressure, or G-load, for the descent. They'll probably feel briefly 4 to 5 times the force of gravity.
Visible. Well, I don't see anything.
Just 2 minutes later, 14 minutes before touchdown, when the Soyuz is 35,000 feet above the Earth and traveling at a speed of about 514 miles per hour, Soyuz computer will command the first of a series of parachutes to deploy. 2 pilot parachutes will come first, one 6.7 square feet and one 48.4 square feet, and together they'll drag out the drogue chute, a 258 square foot parachute that slows the Soyuz down to 178 miles per hour. The drogue chute will also create a gentle spin for the Soyuz as it dangles underneath, which will help stabilize the capsule in its final minutes before touchdown. Then just before that touchdown, the drogue chutes will be jettisoned to make way for the deployment of the 3,281-foot main parachute. It'll continue slowing down the capsule to a speed of about 16 miles per hour. At first, the capsule will hang beneath it at a 30-degree angle to the horizon to help with aerodynamic stability. But after one of the 2 harnesses connecting the parachute to the capsule is severed, the Soyuz will right itself so that it's in a vertical position through touchdown. We're coming up on that deorbit burn in less than a minute now.
Copy. Cover is open. SKD orbital maneuvering engine cover is open. Stabilization mode is on. 30 seconds remaining prior to engine firing. Copy all. And I'm monitoring all the parameters. Switching to maneuver display. KDU combined propulsion unit parameters are nominal. Copy.
10 seconds now until the deorbit burn.
Yes. 3.
5, 3. Standing by for engine firing. I confirm engine activation and firing.
Teams confirming that the deorbit burn started. That'll last 4 minutes and 39 seconds till 2:23 a.m. The engine firing acts as a brake to slow the Soyuz down while it's about 272 miles above the Earth.
Nozzle pressure 13.
That will drop it out of orbit and send it on its way to that landing just southeast of Jezkazgan.
Consumption 31 kilograms. Acceleration 14.1. 0.45. And the burn value is 14.1. Nozzle pressure 12.6. Spherical tank pressure 175. And 0.45, and the current pressure is nominal. 1 minute.
1 minute into the deorbit burn.
0.45, this is the acceleration, or delta V, and prop consumption is 55 kilograms. 1 minute 15, 12 inaudible. This is the nozzle pressure, 0.45, 139, 45 inaudible. 1 minute and 30, 39.9, 0.45, prop consumption inaudible. 1 minute 45 seconds, nozzle pressure 12.6, spherical tank pressure 136. It is decreasing, acceleration 0.45. And
2 minutes now into the burn. Again, we're aiming for 4 minutes and 39 seconds. This will begin slowing Soyuz down, dropping it into the Earth's atmosphere and bringing it home.
2 minutes, 15 seconds, nozzle pressure 12.6, spherical tank pressure 122, that's 0.45, and the current time is 64.4. 2 minutes, 30 seconds, 67.5, 0.46, prop consumption at 57, everything is nominal. Copy all? 2 minutes, 45 seconds, nozzle pressure 12.7, spherical tank pressure 170, all parameters are nominal, delta V 0.46, and current time is inaudible.
3 minutes into the burn, 1 minute and 39 seconds left.
8.5, 0.46, this is the delta V, 189, this is the prop consumption value, and all parameters are nominal. Spherical tank pressure 107, 104, 0.46, and inaudible. 3 minutes 30 seconds, 93.7, 0.46, and prop consumption is also nominal. All parameters are nominal. 3 minutes 45 seconds, 12.7. This is the nozzle pressure, and 97, 94, 104.9.
4 minutes down now. We're hearing those crew reports that all is looking nominal.
4 minutes, 107.9, 0.46, 252. This is the prop consumption rate. Everything is nominal. 4 minutes and 11 seconds. Nozzle pressure 12.8, 12.5. Spherical tanks 1.8. Inaudible. Delta V 0.45, 46, and 125.
5 seconds left.
284. This is the prop consumption value. Everything is nominal. Standing by for engine activation. Deactivation. Deactivation confirmed. KSDBO valve is open. And the separation confirmed. Burn value is 128, 127.99. Bow pressure is decreasing. Copy.
That deorbit burn took place and wrapped up exactly on time and went exactly as planned. That means that the Soyuz crew is definitely on their way home now. They've been using that burn to drop back into the Earth's atmosphere, slow down, and begin their descent, which will lead to that 3:12 a.m. Central Time landing just southeast of Jetskizgan in Kazakhstan. There will be a little bit of wait here now before the next big milestone. That'll come in about 23 minutes at 2:46 a.m., and that is when the Soyuz computers will command its 3 modules to separate. Crew members are in the center module. They'll get rid of the modules on either side of them. That will ensure that their heat shield is exposed and ready to protect them, and the parachutes will be able to deploy and slow down their descent once they are just a few minutes ahead of landing. Again, that deorbit burn took place right on time at 2:18 a.m. Central Time and wrapped up right on time as well, 4 minutes and 39 seconds later.
Your go to switch to page 56. 6 minutes remaining. KSS Rescue should be ready at this point. No later than at what time? 6 minutes prior to the separation time. Yes, we still have time, so we will start at approximately 11:42. Copy. Actually, at 11:38. And I would like to remind you that you should provide a running commentary of your actions even if there is no comm.
Once again, that 4-minute and 39-second deorbit burn is the key to getting the crew on their way back home and wrapping up what will be a record-setting mission for the crew members, and particularly Christina Koch, who will have spent 328 days in space, the longest single space flight for any female. You can see this video from her launch back on March 14th in 2019. She launched actually with Nick Hague and Alexei Ovchinin as part of the then Expedition 59 crew. She saw not only that Expedition 59 come to an end, but also, of course, Expedition 60 and then 61, which just wrapped up with her departure along with Luca Parmitano and Alexander Skvortsov. This launch set off the count that eventually racked up 328 days in space, setting that record. But at the time of her launch, Christina did not know that she would be staying in space for quite such a long time. She handled the news well, though, was excited to get the extra time in space, and has used it to accomplish quite a bit, including 6 spacewalks totaling 42 hours and 15 minutes, including 3 that were with her and Jessica Meir, the first 3 spacewalks to be conducted by an all-female team. You can see some of the highlights of her mission here. Again, that 328 days in space, 6 spacewalks for 42 hours and 15 minutes. All of that done over the course of 5,248 orbits around the Earth, a total of more than 139 million miles.
Yes, that's correct.
And that number of miles she could have gone to the moon and back 291 times. Again, that record does leave her with the longest single space flight by a woman, and also the 7th longest time spent in space by a U.S. astronaut. There are 6 U.S. astronauts ahead of her, but all of them completed their time over more than one mission. This is, of course, her first mission, and she racked it up all in that time. That also leaves her 50th on the all-time endurance list for all astronauts.
Are nominal and stable.
And to give you an idea of where she stands, in addition to having the longest single space flight by a woman, she is second on the list of longest single space flights by an American, just a few days under Scott Kelly's record of 340 days. And she beat Peggy Whitson's previous record of 288 days back in December. Still about 15 minutes before we see that command from the Soyuz computers that will command the modules of the Soyuz to separate. That will again come at 2:45 a.m. Central Time, but in the meantime we are getting confirmation here on the ground that the landing team that will be meeting Cook, Parmitano, and Skvortsov at the landing site is well on their way. to go over again the different members of the team who are going to be meeting the crew when they do touch down. Here's another look at it. A total of 12 Mi-8 helicopters are on their way to various possible landing sites. 8 are going to be at the expected landing site southeast of Jetskisgan. 2 more will be ready about 250 miles away in an area where touchdown would take place if ballistic entry occurred, which we're not expecting. And the final 2 helicopters loiter midway between the 2. Then in addition to that, we also are sending out 6 all-terrain vehicles, 3 Antonov airplanes that serve as flying command centers, and that's a look at that all-terrain vehicles there. The Antonov airplanes will also provide communication between the crew and Moscow. Once again, we're counting down the minutes until about 2:46 a.m. when the modules of the Soyuz will separate following a command from the Soyuz computers. The orbital module on top, where the crew has a small amount of room to move around during its flight to the space station after launch, and the instrumentation and propulsion module on the bottom, which houses the oxygen storage tanks, attitude control thrusters, avionics and communications, and control equipment. Both of those separate, leaving the descent module in the middle on its own with the crew inside. Here's a look at what that descent module looks like. You can see the 3 seats the crew sit in. They have seats that are molded especially for them to try and give them as much cushion as possible during landing. It's not a large area, but they don't have to be in it alone for very long. So look at some of the controls that they have a view of as they make that descent. We saw a view of some of them earlier during the undocking. In addition to the controls and displays and the seats, it also has life support provisions, batteries for re-entry and landing, and a parachute and soft landing rockets that help slow the vehicle down just before touchdown, try and make it a little softer on them. The other 2 modules, the orbital module and the instrumentation and propulsion module, both burn up in the Earth's atmosphere while the descent module continues on. You can see that orbital module here, that again provides them a little extra space to move around in on their way to the space station, but once they're on their way home, they do get rid of that, leaving just the descent module here in the middle. Also jettisoning the instrumentation and propulsion module on the bottom.
going to be all wet. I mean, we can only do our best, right? Last time, my microphones were like this.
All continuing to go well as we wait for that next big milestone, 2:46 a.m. Central Time, when the Soyuz descent module will get rid of the orbital module and the instrumentation and propulsion module and allow the crew to continue on its journey.
Well, let's get ready the rescue aids. Closing the visors. Look that there is nothing in the way of the helmet closing. And 2 clicks. Even maybe. And now S3 command. Nominal attitude for separation. Copy. Releasing the PTT.
Breakdown here of the events that we're going to be watching for as the Soyuz makes its way back down to the Earth, starting with that deorbit burn that took place at 2:18 a.m. Central Time, right on time. We're heading now towards the module separation, the second milestone there on the list. That's coming up in about 6 minutes now. That's when the middle part of the Soyuz carrying the crew will get rid of the other two segments so that all the systems it needs for landing are exposed and ready for entry. Once we do see that module separation, things will begin happening pretty fast at 2:49 a.m. Central, about 3 minutes later. While the Soyuz is about 62 miles above the Earth, it'll begin experiencing atmospheric entry. That's when the descent module's computers will orient the capsule with its heat shield pointing towards the direction it's traveling in, the hot part, to protect it from heat as it begins to fly through the Earth's atmosphere, and the crew begins to feel the first effects of gravity. That's going to be building through 2:56 a.m. Central Time when they'll experience the maximum G load or pressure for about 4 to 5 times the force of gravity for a few minutes, or just briefly. Just 2 minutes after that, we'll start seeing the parachutes begin to deploy. As you're seeing here, there are a number of them. It starts with 2 pilot parachutes that pull out a larger drogue chute, which slows the Soyuz down a little bit and in turn pulls out the main parachutes, that orange and white one you see in this graphic. But just before it does touch down, one other system helps the Soyuz slow down just a little bit more, the soft landing jets, as they're called. Although most astronauts will tell you it's not a particularly soft landing even with their help. Those fire just about 2 seconds before touchdown to help lessen the impact of meeting the Earth.
Ожидаем запуск программы разделения.
Starting for the start of separation cyclogram.
We should be coming up on that module separation here in just a moment.
T separation minus 1 minute 14 seconds.
This happens when the Soyuz is about 87 miles above the Earth.
Also, so please continue reporting to us, even if there is no two-way comm.
Teams here on the ground are reporting that the crew members are going through an area where some bad communication was expected, poor communication ability between us and this crew on board the Soyuz. So we will hopefully hear some confirmation as things happen. We should be right about now seeing those the separation of the 3 Soyuz modules.
Separation.
And there you go. Sounds like they are now separated. That again takes place when the Soyuz is 87 miles above the Earth, sending the orbital module and the instrumentation and propulsion module on their way to burn up in the Earth's atmosphere, while the crew module, the descent module, is left with the crew inside, along with its heat shield and its parachutes that will help them safely get down to Earth. The next milestone we'll be looking for is atmospheric entry, coming up in about 2 minutes. That's when the crew begins to feel the effects of gravity for the first time since they left Earth. That's 328 days ago for Christina Koch, 201 for Luca Parmitano and Alexander Skvortsov. Also about this time, the descent module's computer will orient the capsule so that the heat shield is pointing forward, protecting it from the heat generated as it begins to experience the atmosphere. Once again, we are in the middle of a period when the communication between us and the Soyuz was expected to be a little spotty, so we may not hear too much from the crew as they begin making their way home, but we did hear that did get a successful separation of the 3 modules, and now are watching for them to begin experiencing the Earth's atmosphere for the first time. Just in the past couple of minutes, they will have gone from 87 miles above the Earth to about 62 miles. Again, things start happening pretty quick now. Once they do begin experiencing the Earth's atmosphere, the computers on board the Soyuz, of course, will begin getting the Soyuz into position for its landing, and more specifically the heat they'll be experiencing as they make their way through the atmosphere. About this time, the crew is beginning to feel the effects of gravity again, and it's going to continue building for the next 6 minutes or so when they'll experience the maximum pressure, or G load. They can expect to feel about 4 to 5 times the force of gravity that we experience on Earth just for a little while. Expedition 61 members well on their way now to that 3:12 a.m. landing time that we've been heading towards since they left the International Space Station at 11:50. Everything happening in sequence and on time so far, starting with today's 2:18 a.m. Central Time deorbit burn. Set the Expedition 61 crew members on their way for a 3:12 a.m. landing. They're currently right in the middle of the of that descent, coming up on the maximum pressure that the crew will experience, and in the middle of plasma interface. They'll be coming out of that in just a couple of minutes, and then shortly afterwards, we'll begin seeing parachutes deploy. Just now coming into that time when the crew members will be experiencing the maximum G loads.
What is the G load? We have 4.28 right now. We copy. Integral is 015, and we have automatic control descent. And now 30 seconds.
Reports from the crew members there lining up exactly as expected with the point that when they'd be experiencing this maximum G loads. Now about a minute away from when we would expect the parachutes to begin deploying, about 35,000 feet above the Earth. Right now they'll be traveling right around 500 miles per hour.
We had O2 supply, so the pressure is different now.
Parachute deployments will start with the 2 pilot chutes that pull out the 258 square foot drogue chute. That slows the Soyuz down to 178 miles per hour in only about 16 seconds and begins stabilizing the capsule. Once it's jettisoned, it makes way for the 3,281-foot main parachute, which slows the Soyuz down to about 15.6 miles per hour.
Standing by.
Seeing some animation here of that sequence. Parachutes should begin deploying right about now. Again, with that, those two pilot chutes first, pulling out a drogue chute that slows the Soyuz down to 178 miles per hour, and then makes way for the main parachute. Big yellow, orange and white ones that you're used to seeing. That continues slowing the Soyuz down to about 15.6 miles per hour. Main parachute will keep the Soyuz slowing down steadily as they make their way to the ground for more than 10 minutes. That again not only slows them down, but it also helps them get stabilized as they make their way towards that landing, which we are expecting at 3:12 a.m. Central Time. Two harnesses on the main parachute hold the Soyuz at a 30-degree angle to the horizon until the bottom harness is severed and the Soyuz is able to swing into a vertical position for touchdown. And it looks like the team in the flight control team in Russia is seeing some video of the Soyuz making its way down. Already beneath that main parachute that will continue slowing the Soyuz down to 15.6 miles per hour.
17.1. Pressure 9 for number 1. Inaudible 15 for the second one.
We're working on getting a better shot of that video for you, but everything, there it is, and that is a great view of the Soyuz under the main parachute. Not as cloudy as predicted, it looks like. A very clear view.
No issues.
And this is actually the first time that we're getting HD video of the landing, so it's especially fortuitous that we're getting such a clear video, despite the cloudy weather predictions. Inside the capsule there, Christina, Koch, Luca, Parmitano, and Alexander Skvortsov are just minutes away from their triumphant return to Earth. That should be taking place around 3:12 a.m. Central Time, so still another 10 minutes for them to slow down as they make their way toward the Earth. As they get closer, just about 2 seconds before they touch down, so Skvortsov will get a notice from the computer to fire 6 solid propellant engines called the soft landing engines. Slow the Soyuz down to 5 feet per second, or about 3.5 miles per hour.
Inaudible. 0.5, 0.3.
Once again, this video coming from helicopters who've made their way out to the landing site, ready to meet them. About 8 helicopters are going to converge on the landing site with a number of support personnel from NASA and Roscosmos.
Meters right now. Standing by for the report. So we are not going to do anything else right now.
Slight correction to what I said there. This video actually coming from the team who arrived on the ground, ready to rush in to meet the crew once they do touch down. Helicopters also, of course, converging on the landing site to provide their support personnel as well.
What a ride.
Three minutes. Altitude is 33, inaudible.
Soyuz MS-13 continuing its smooth descent on a way to a 3:12 a.m. landing in Kazakhstan.
2,800 meters. This is the current altitude.
All looking good so far as it makes its way down. Again, a great view here. The first time that we've been able to get HD video from the landing site. These views coming from the team who've already made it to where we expect the Soyuz to touch down on the ground. Just a few more minutes now left, and Christina Koch's record-breaking spaceflight, 328 days in space, just about to come to an end with this upcoming touchdown.
Soyuz crew inaudible. Stop pressure inaudible. Christina, yes, go ahead.
Soyuz MS-13 continuing to make its way down. Just a few more minutes, scheduled to touch down in 2 minutes, actually, at 3:12 a.m. Hopefully we'll get a little bit of video back. There it is. Inside, Christina Koch, Luca Parmitano, and Alexander Skvortsov.
Copy all.
Again, one of the last things to happen here will be the firing of the soft landing engines. That'll happen just a couple of seconds before the actual touchdown, when it's about 39 feet above the Earth. That's 6 solid propellant engines that are intended to soften the blow of landing just a little bit.
Altitude.
Soyuz also has seat shock absorbers that will be turned on by now, prepared for that landing. And the seats themselves are contoured to fit the astronauts individually to provide them the softest possible landing, although all reports are that it still is not quite soft.
Land inside.
You can see one of the helicopters that's been sent in to meet the Soyuz there in that view as well. And it looks like Soyuz MS-13 carrying Christina Koch, Luca Parmitano, and Alexander Skvortsov has touched down 3:12 a.m. Central Time, right on time. And now, after 328 days in space and 139 million miles for Christina Koch, and 201 days in space, 85 million miles for Luca Parmitano and Alexander Skvortsov, the Expedition 61 crew is officially home. Again, that landing came right at 3:12 a.m. Central Time, 3:12 p.m. Kazakhstan time, following the deorbit burn that set it on its way at 2:18 a.m. Central Time. Now that the Soyuz has touched down, we'll begin seeing, hopefully, with this great view that we're getting, some of the helicopters begin landing around it, teams descending now that it has safely made it to the ground and they can move in. Number of landing support personnel will be moving into place to help the crew members out of the Soyuz. We should see them as we usually do in the chairs in front of their vehicle before they get whisked away to the medical tent for their post-landing checkups. It is, again, about 25 degrees Fahrenheit in Kazakhstan here at the landing site today, so that they probably won't to linger very long, but as soon as we are able to get you a view of them, we will certainly do so. Once again, for Christina Koch, this wrapped up a record-breaking mission, 328 days, the longest single space flight for a woman from any nation, and the 7th longest space flight for man or woman for U.S. astronauts. She launched on March 14th, 2019, and it's been at the space station since, seeing a number of crew members come and go. Her current crewmates on board the Soyuz, Luca Parmitano and Alexander Skvortsov, arrived at the station on July 20th, along with Andrew Morgan, who stayed behind at the International Space Station. He, Jessica Meir, and Oleg Skvortsov will be there until April. During those 328 days in space, Koch traveled 139 million miles, the equivalent of 291 round trips to the moon and back. For Luca Parmitano and Alexander Skvortsov, they spent 201 days in space, made 3,216 orbits, and traveled 85 billion miles. Although they are back on Earth, their journey is not quite done. They'll need to make their way for Skvortsov back to Star City. Luca will be traveling back to Europe, and Christina, of course, will be coming back to the United States. They've got a little bit more journey ahead of them. But first, we'll wait for those landing support crew members to make their way to the capsule and begin getting them out. We are seeing a lot of your congratulations messages come through for Christina Koch using the hashtag Congrats Christina. Those are great, and we really appreciate them. And of course, we were also ahead of her landing, collecting some congratulation messages from the teams that support her here on the ground. We've got another one coming up here from the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in California.
Hey Christina, Matt Bennett here. This is OCO3 Project Manager Ralph Basilio and Project Scientist Dr. Anne-Marie Eldering. And we just want to say thank you for all your interest in the OCO3 project and all the beautiful pictures that you took of OCO3 in action on the space station. We're really glad you're home safely. From all of us here at JPL, welcome home!
It is certainly not too late to get your own congratulations messages in, so keep those coming using the hashtag #CongratsChristina. We're standing by as we wait to hopefully be getting some video from the landing site pretty soon. While we wait for the video from the landing site to come online, we have one more video congratulating Christina from the teams that have been supporting her here on the ground.
Welcome home, Christina. It's been great supporting you from the ISS Mir. Thank you.
Welcome home, Christina. Congratulations on your record-setting mission from your Boeing Houston ISS team.
Two more of the teams that have been supporting Christina Koch and the other space station crew members from the ground sending in their congrats. And just one more reminder, you can send in your own using the hashtag #CongratsChristina. We're still waiting to receive video from the landing site, but we do have personnel there on the ground who are ready to send us in some reports. One of them is NASA spokesman Rob Navius. Rob, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can, Brady. A remarkable scene out here. A journey roughly the equivalent of 291 round trips to the moon for Christina Koch at an end. The Soyuz MS-13 stopped the landing. It is upright, and they're in the process of beginning to put the erector to a ladder on top of the hatch. about 100 yards away. Snow on the ground. More likely.
Rob, I think we may be missing some of what you're saying there. It sounds like you said the Soyuz did land upright. They're getting the ladder into the place, and hopefully soon we'll be getting the crew members out.
That's Randy. It is the MS-13 landed upright. They'll be erecting a ladder and begin the process very quickly here. The scene here is almost surrealistic in the middle of this desolate area of south-central Kazakhstan. On the ground, all of the Russian Mi-8 helicopters were on the ground within 4 minutes of touchdown. Just a remarkable pinpoint landing for Christina, Koch, Luca, Parmitano, and Alexander Skvortsov.
We saw some great video of it as it was coming down. No clouds in the way, thankfully. But we don't have any video of the scene there at the landing site just yet, so we're still waiting on that.
All right, well, hang in here with me. The ladder is now being put around the top of the spacecraft. That will set the stage for the opening of the hatch by the RSC Energia personnel there. The first one's on the scene. Medical personnel consisting of NASA flight surgeon, European Space Agency flight surgeon, and Russian flight surgeon and respective nurses. They are all ready to attend to their respective crew members. This whole process will take just a few minutes before each of the crew members is extracted from the Soyuz descent module. They'll be put in chairs. That's the current plan, although it's pretty cold out here. Temperatures below freezing in the mid-20s Fahrenheit. How long they actually remain in chairs remains to be seen before they would be brought into that inflatable medical tent for initial medical testing.
Yeah, I imagine they won't be wanting to linger any more than they have to, ready to get inside that medical tent as soon as they can. We're getting.
Let me know when you're if you're seeing your first imagery from the landing site. You're seeing some of the RSC Energia personnel and the search and recovery forces. They will begin the process momentarily of opening that top hatch. The Soyuz commander, Alexander Skvortsov, in the center seat of the descent module. He'll be the first to be extracted, followed in all likelihood by Parmitano and Koch.
No video for us yet, so we're depending on your description for a little while longer.
All right, as is typically the case, the flags of Russia and Kazakhstan have been planted in a perimeter around the landing site. Again, just a very surrealistic scene. In a foot of snow in early February, a crew that just hours ago was in the comfort of the International Space Station back on Earth, Christina Koch having completed 328 days in space, the second longest U.S. spaceflight in history.
You've seen a number of these landings up close and personal. Are you able to compare this to the other ones or rank them in any way?
Yeah, I would tell you that the speed in which our helicopters were on the ground and our ability to see the Soyuz under the chutes in the final minutes before the soft landing engines fired and touchdown occurred, you never get tired of it. It's just a remarkable scene. The Soyuz itself, as is always the case, its outer hull scorched by the heat of reentry, but the personnel here working very quickly to get that top hatch open. The ladder has already been erected, and we're expecting to see the first items removed from the Soyuz vehicle very soon, followed by the crew members one by one.
And I suppose Skvortsov will be first?
Yes, the Soyuz commander is always the first out because that makes the way clear for the other crew members who flanked him during reentry. Luca Parmitano, flight engineer number 1 to his left, Christina Koch, flight engineer number 2 to his right. They'll be extracted after Skvortsov is, but they have to get that Soyuz commander out first to clear the way for the extraction of the other crew members.
We're still waiting to see more video, but in the meantime, we are hearing from a lot of people who are watching on social media sending in their congratulations to Christina using the hashtag #CongratsChristina. So we hope that you're able to pass on those congratulations when you see her and her crewmates.
We will certainly do that, Brandy. As I'm sure you have reported earlier in the day, once the crew has completed about an hour and a half worth of medical testing in that nearby tent that has already been erected, they will be flown in 3 individual helicopters, a 2-hour, 10-minute helicopter flight back to the northeast of our landing site here, to the staging city of Karaganda, where they will undergo a brief period of additional medical testing before Koch and Parmitano board a NASA jet to head for Cologne, Germany. Alexander Skvortsov will board a Gagarin Cosmonaut training center aircraft to fly back to his home in Star City, Russia. It is in Cologne where the European Astronaut Center is located. At Parmitano and other ESA personnel who will be on the NASA plane will be dropped off. They'll be greeted by ESA VIPs at the Cologne airport. It's actually a military airfield that's adjacent to the commercial part of the Cologne-Bonn airport in Germany. Christina Koch will undergo some additional medical testing. That was the planned protocol in Cologne before she reboards the NASA jet, and we will head back to Houston.
And amazingly, the trip from space to Earth takes less time than the trip for the crew members back to their own homes.
Exactly. I will tell you that we heard earlier today, about 2 or 3 hours ago, that after the crew had closed the hatch to their Soyuz spacecraft, leaving Drew Morgan, Jessica Meir, and the new ISS commander, Alex Koch, behind, that Jessica Meir reported, it sure feels lonely up here. But that won't be the case for very long. Just a couple of months from now, another Soyuz launch with Chris Cassidy, Nikolai Tikhonov, and Andrei Babkin will be staged from the Baikonur Cosmodrome, which is to the southwest of where we are at the moment. That launch scheduled for April 9th to re-up the station crew, at least for an 8-day period, to a full 6-person complement.
The hugs on the orbit that we saw during the hatch closing, and also the words from Luca Parmitano as he was handing over the command of the station to Oleg Skvortsov were all very touching. You could tell the crew, you could see that they were going to miss each other, and they've also been tweeting as they led up to their departure about that, how much they'll miss all being together in space. Still no video on our end, unfortunately, Rob.
I'm sorry, Brandy, are you receiving video yet?
No video yet here.
Okay, you should be getting it any time now. The crew was very close, particularly Jessica Meir and Christina Koch. They had trained together. They were classmates in their astronaut class several years ago, and of course conducted a series of all-female spacewalks to set yet another mark in history, as if there weren't enough records that were being set during the course of Expedition 61, which saw a record 9 spacewalks totaling 61 hours, dead even. Very ironic for those 9 spacewalks during Expedition 62 away.
They've certainly earned a rest after all that they did in space. I'm sure they're eager to get home at this point.
Yeah, the thing that Andy, is the precision with which the Russian search and recovery forces and the support personnel execute one of these landings and subsequent recoveries. We are actually looking off beyond a series of Russian Mi-8 helicopters to some local villagers that are riding native horses in a foot of snow here in the south central steppe of Kazakhstan. You just never know, Randy.
Can't wait to get the video. It sounds like it's going to be really good.
I mean, it's just amazing. There's a bell out here, no wind, temperature in the mid-20s, and natives riding their native horses just a little bit the stroll on local horses on Thursday.
Are they making
By the
any
way,
progress?
The RSC Energia personnel are in the process of beginning to gather up the cords for the main parachute that will be folded up and returned for post-flight analysis. The top hatch has now been opened, by the way, to the MS-13 spacecraft. The large orange and white parachute that you're accustomed to seeing for landings, and here at the landing site itself during the descent of the Soyuz spacecraft, that parachute is going to be gathered up and taken back for engineers to do post-flight analysis on. It worked like a charm. Without any presence of wind here today, the Soyuz landed upright, which is the preferred orientation, although dragged on its side. There, of course, is another hatch available for the crew to be extracted. We should be seeing Alexander Skvortsov being pulled out of the Soyuz spacecraft here almost any time now. The chairs that they will be placed in with very warm blankets to cover them, those have been set up. So we'll be expecting to see the three crew members here before long, and now they're in the process of pulling the first crew member out, and indeed, Alexander Skvortsov, the veteran Soyuz commander with more than 500 days in space now on 3 space missions, smiling broadly. A whole flank of photographers and television cameras here at the landing site. He is resting now on the edge of the Soyuz spacecraft and will be swung around and assisted down the ladder and be brought into his chair for a few minutes to get his equilibrium back, and hugs to some of the RSC Energia personnel in the process of removing him from his Soyuz spacecraft.
And it looks like they are starting to get to video at the Russian Flight Control Center. So hopefully we will be seeing it for ourselves soon. We're seeing a smaller version of it right now.
Skvortsov is out of the spacecraft. He will be helped down the slide. That's part of this ladder apparatus at the top hatch of the Soyuz. He's waving, smiling broadly, thumbs up. And he is now back on terra firma.
And we are seeing that live now, Rob. Thanks so much for keeping us informed while we waited. We got it just in time to see his smiles and thumbs up.
Very good. We'll hang here with you, Brandy, and provide any additional details that we might be able to do. I'm going to try to reposition myself so I can get a better view of Christina Koch when she comes out of the Soyuz.
Alexander Skvortsov certainly looks like he's glad to be home, pumping his fist into the air, shaking hands, lots of well-wishers on hand. Once again, on this mission, Alexander Skvortsov racked up 201 days in space, but he's adding that to what he totaled on previous space two previous space flights now to come up with 546 days in total that he has spent in space over those 3 space flights.
And Brandy, if I might interrupt, Christina Koch, your record holder, she is out. Thumbs up and a huge smile.
Yes, we are seeing it real time. She definitely looks glad to be home. Again, 328 days that she's spent in space since her launch on March 14th.
Cook now is going down the slide, Brandy, and she'll be brought to her chair.
all smiles and looking like she's feeling great.
Still hear me?
Yes, we can still hear you, Rob.
Okay, I'm going to make my way over to Christina. Christina, welcome home.
Current record holder for longest single space flight by a woman of any nationality, and seventh most space flight time accumulated by an American astronaut.
Randy, they just scooted her chair just a few feet back from where it was to give the group of photographers and television cameras here a little bit more room to position themselves. She's now donned sunglasses, as undoubtedly you can see, and we're awaiting the extraction of Luca Parmitano, who has spent more days in space than any other European Space Agency astronaut.
We're standing by for that. We're still, at the moment, seeing a view of Alexander Skvortsov, still looking like he is feeling pretty good and happy to be home. Still giving thumbs up.
Christina Koch, by the way, Brandy, just looked around at the large group of folks here to greet her and her crewmates, and she uttered the word, wow. Very impressed and very happy to be breathing this nice cold air on this Thursday afternoon.
I think a lot of people saying wow about her as well.
Big thumbs up for Luca Parmitano if you're seeing him being helped down the slide. He is no stranger to Soyuz landings, of course. And Cook and Skvortsov are giving a big fist bump to their teammates in number one.
Looks like you've got 3 happy astronauts there. Glad to be back to the ground.
Luca Parmitano, big smile, just pointed at me and exclaimed, "Who was back on Earth?"
As you pointed out, he has the most days in space of any ESA astronaut at this point, with his 2 space flights totaling 367 days in space. That includes the 201 that he just returned from.
Trio of all-terrain, one of each crew member, rolled up to the perimeter of the landing site. Once the crew members are finished in the medical tent, they will be driven from the medical tent to their respective helicopters, getting the journey back to the staging city of Karaganda, as we mentioned earlier.
We're seeing Alexander Skvortsov right now on the phone. I assume probably talking to some family or friends who are watching from a distance. Although it looks crowded there at the landing site from this view, if you were able to turn the camera around, it would be just empty space all around them. So they are really in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, this landing site, which is typical in its latitude and longitude for Soyuz landings, the nominal Soyuz landings, which of course this one was, it's wide open spaces. I'm just struck by the natives who came out to watch this landing on horseback, who are just a few yards away from us here. Totally extraordinary.
That's a lucky chance for them, getting to see the welcome home.
Randy, I'm expecting that it will be just a few more minutes before they start to carry the crew members one by one to the nearby medical tent. I'm going to wait here for a little bit, and we'll let you know when that process begins, if you are not already seeing it. I'm just standing probably 15 feet away from the Soyuz spacecraft. Some of the early return items are being unloaded from the top hatch that the crew was extracted from just a few minutes ago. I'm actually going to take a stroll over here to take a closer look at the natives on horseback. Local Kazakh residents. They're talking to some of the engineering personnel who are took a moment from working the parachute, putting it in the right configuration. They have a dog with them, so a little bit of nature mixing with human spaceflight out here today.
Now, again, you've been out there a number of times. Is that a first for you?
I've never seen this, Brandy. It's remarkable. I mean, there are small villages in the close proximity to this landing site, not immediately within a few feet, of course, or a few miles, but for some amazing reason, these folks know when landings are about to occur, and in this world of GPS and other capabilities, they pretty much know exactly where a Soyuz spacecraft is going to land.
I would come out to see it if I were nearby as well.
The other thing that's quite remarkable is the fact that this cold front that brought about a foot of snow to the region in the last few days, it blew through right on time, and as predicted, when we left the staging city of Karaganda earlier this morning, it was very, very gray, overcast, and it was snowing to the northeast. As soon as we got airborne in the helicopters, however, we could see clear skies as far as the eye could see, and it has turned into a gorgeous winter day.
We're seeing Skvortsov eat an apple right now. I know that Christina Koch was craving chips and salsa. Do you think that's in her near future?
No question. There are enough chips, salsa on the NASA plane coming home to accommodate several Mexican restaurants back in Houston. I will tell you, no shortage of her favorite delicacy on the way home.
Everyone's still looking happy. Lots of smiles.
They're all happy. Of course, they've gone into the process of the traditional group picture. The crew very much in the fresh air out here.
Sounds like we lost Rob Navius there, giving us the play-by-play from on the scene in Kazakhstan. But as you can see, we've still got the video, so able to see as the activities continue that they should be preparing to move the crew into the medical tent sometime pretty soon.
Yeah, I've been practicing that landing on Thank you. Oh man, it was beautiful. Like the landing. Hello, thank you. I'm so overwhelmed and happy right now. Oh my gosh, there's an animal. You see the dog? Yeah, the dog came to say hi.
We'll probably kind of bunch up the blanket train.
My blanket train.
Looks like that move to the medical tent is imminent, starting with Alexander Skvortsov. The landing support personnel will carry the crew members into the tent just so that they don't have to risk moving on their own when their equilibrium may still be adjusting from their reintroduction to gravity.
Rob, no questions for me? Come on, man, you're disappointing me.
Saw a view there of Alexander Skvortsov disappearing into the medical tent. Again, they've got several post-landing checkups they'll go through. And we also now have back online with us Rob Navius, who's there on the scene. Rob, can you hear us?
Yes, Brandy. Off of wild horses, as they said in Kazakhstan, couldn't keep me away, so I'm back with you. Skvortsov is now in the medical tent. Luca Parmitano is now hit. And he is starting the short ride being carried by Union Space Agency and Russian personnel to that medical tent. Christina Koch will follow in very short order.
Yes, we're seeing Luca Parmitano on his way now.
And Christina Koch is now being hoisted by NASA and Russian personnel. And she will be brought into the medical tent to begin her medical testing. We mentioned earlier, an hour and a half to complete. So we'll turn it back over to you, Brandy, in Mission Control in Houston, and we'll be talking to you later after we begin the trip back to Houston.
Thanks so much for all the great descriptions, Rob. We really appreciate you calling in, and please pass on our congrats and welcome homes to all three of the crew members.
Well, we will do that, Brandy, and have a good rest of the day. Another successful space station mission in the books.
Indeed. Thanks again, Rob, and we appreciate that. Your play-by-play. It's been been great to have. And there is Christina Koch making her own way into the medical tent, still with smiles and thumbs up. All the crew members seeming like they're feeling pretty well for having spent 201 to 328 days in space. The checkups that the crew members undergo inside the medical tent do take a while, so that will be the last that we see of them for our landing coverage here today. Hopefully we'll be able to get you some video as they begin making their way home through video files coming up, but that is probably the last we'll see of them in Kazakhstan. You can see there some of the nearby residents who have come out to see the ceremony, the welcome home. And a great view of the Soyuz MS-13 here, still being unloaded. They'll be getting a lot of science experiments and data off of the spacecraft. It'll be making its way home alongside the astronauts.
Теперь надо вооруженников сейчас продумать, как они подходят. Я тебя оставить не буду, ты пришел. Ты меня в гостинице.
Once again, with the crew now inside the medical tent, we don't expect to see them again from the landing site in Kazakhstan. So we did want to go over, though, some of the records set, the totals and stats for this mission before we do wrap up our coverage. Of course, for Luca Parmitano and Alexander Skvortsov, they launched in July, on July 20th, along with Andrew Morgan from Kazakhstan. So they have a total of 201 days in space for this mission, but this is not either of their first missions, so they have additional totals to add that to. For Alexander Skvortsov, he now has racked up 546 days in space over the 3 flights that he has been a part of. For Luca Parmitano, with 2 flights, the total comes to 360.
Hi, I'm John Grunsfeld, NASA astronaut.
Hi, I'm Christy Hansen, Johnson Space Center EVA Task Astronaut Training Lead and Flight Controller.
And EVA means extravehicular activity, which is just another long way of saying spacewalk. And I got to do 8 spacewalks on the Hubble Space Telescope. You might wonder, how did we learn to do the complex tasks using all the cool tools that we used on the Hubble Space Telescope? Christy, how did we learn how to do all of that?
So as the EVA Task Training Lead, one of my big duties was to work together with the astronauts for about 2 years